Okay guys, I'm back with the Louisiana Crispy Fried Fish Cajun recipe that you're going to fall in love with. If there is one thing we know how to do right in Louisiana, it would be frying. And it doesn't matter what it is, we are experts on bringing out the best flavor and texture with an ingredient with this method of cooking, and we know how to season to perfection. My Louisiana Crispy Fried Fish recipe is the perfect example of this. Tender fillets of fish are dipped into the perfect combination of lemon and spices and fried perfectly for a crunchy exterior but a tender interior every single time. Now, you can definitely use any type of fish for this recipe, but here I'm using white perch, or some people call it crappie, and I just took the fillets and I sliced them in half, and there's always a little bit extra, and that's totally okay. It's just a smaller piece of fish, but I like to cut my strips thin because I like to have more surface area for my breading to coat, and that gives me a crispier piece of fish. Now, you might be thinking that there really isn't much thought that goes into frying, but you'd be wrong about that. When I'm considering whether or not to fry a food, I take lots of things into account. The moisture content, what would be the best batter or breading option for this ingredient, what seasonings am I going to use to bring out the best flavor, and how long am I going to leave this item in the oil. All of these variables, plus a few more, are what make or break your dish. Frying isn't just a catch-all cooking method, and it does require some attention to detail and some knowledge for the intended outcome. Now for this recipe, I'm using a prepackaged mix. It's Louisiana fish fry. In Louisiana, we are huge fans of frying with cornmeal, and we usually omit flour for certain items, and fish would be one of them. Fried okra is also best when fried with cornmeal and not flour as well. Of course, that's a hot take. That's my opinion, but I feel like I can prove it if you make my crispy fried okra. Now, what I like to do is I like to add lemon pepper seasoning straight into the Louisiana fish fry. Yes, the Louisiana fish fry is already seasoned to perfection, but I'm telling you, the addition of the lemon pepper is going to make such a huge difference. What I'm doing here is I'm sprinkling a little bit of the mixture in the oil to see if it's ready to fry. And if it bubbles up like it did, that means you can go ahead and drop your items. I actually needed it to be just a touch hotter, so I waited a few more minutes and then I began adding the rest of my fish fillets. So what I do is I take some fish fillets, just a few at a time, and I put them in the mixture. I make sure they're coated on all sides with that fish fry mixture, and then I pick each fillet up individually and shake off the excess, and sometimes I bump it against the side of the bowl. Then I place it gently into the oil, which should be about 350 degrees for frying. I'm just going to show you up close what it looks like, and it could be, again, that oil needs to be just a touch hotter. I like it to have a little bit more of a sizzle because this is white perch or crappie, and we don't want them to stay in the oil too long. So I want to get a nice crispy crust on the outside, and I don't want to overcook the fish on the inside. It tends to dry out pretty quickly. Now, catfish is more forgiving than this, so you can let it stay in longer and get a nice golden color. But for our white perch, we're going to pull them out pretty quickly. I have a pretty big pot or skillet here, so I added quite a few fillets, but you do want to be careful that you don't overcrowd your pan, just because it brings down the temperature so much that you're not going to get that crispy crust that you're looking for. So I would say don't overcrowd the pan. Don't put too many fillets in there, and you need to fry in batches. And I'm going to show you this part, not that this is part of the recipe, but in between, after I took out the first batch of fish fillets, I actually had some French fries going in my air fryer. I'm going to go ahead and cook my homemade hush puppies. Now, this is just for meal planning, so I don't like the food to get cold. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a rest of the fish, and I'm going to do hush puppies. Then I'm going to take that out, and I actually bring everybody to the table and let them start eating while I finish frying the last batch of fish. That way, every item is on the table and hot and ready to eat, because I do not like cold or room temperature fish. And the other thing I want to say is that mixture of the Louisiana fish fry batter and the lemon pepper seasoning, that whole bag is way more than you'll ever need for this batch, but do not throw it away. Put it in a Ziploc bag, label it, and put it in the freezer. And every time you want to fry fish, pull it out and use it. It is totally fine. You have to make this one, guys. You have to.